What's going on, Dolphins? It is your boy Dillon, and I'm making a video today. I got a few things I want to talk about. There's some big, important Dolphins news that I want to discuss, but there's a couple other things, some other smaller things that I want to get to. One being, first of all, again, I wanted to apologize for not doing a live stream during the Super Bowl. I didn't watch it. You know, I got the alerts and stuff, so obviously I know the Chiefs ended up winning. Congratulations to them and Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, etc., etc. It's wonderful, and, you know, I definitely root for the AFC team generally over the NFC team, unless it's the Patriots. But I will say, admittedly, I was kind of hoping a little bit for a 49ers win, just because then it would have made the, at least theoretically, it would have made the business a little bit better, because I was out driving during that, you know. I don't think it actually really had an effect. The business was all right. I'm pretty sure either way. So, but yeah, anyway, so it's just a funny little thing. But no, seriously though, it was a good game from what I could tell. I still haven't watched it. I do intend to hopefully watch it at some point. I'm just, you know, super busy, and that's also part of the reason why I haven't made a video, so or many videos recently, so apologize for that as well. Also, it's because there hasn't been a ton of news, and so absent news, you know, work and other things take priority, generally speaking. But obviously I do need to make sure to keep you guys abreast of the things that are going on, etc., etc. So, you know, a couple quick apologies there, you know, because I want to make sure to provide you guys with content and good content, etc. So I want to do, for sure, make sure to do that, and apologize for not doing a Super Bowl thing. Anyway, there is some big news to talk about. First, I want to just mention really quick, yet again, Zach Thomas got snubbed from the Hall of Fame. I mean, look, it's not totally surprising, unfortunately. I mean, the Dolphins have just been, you know, particularly under the leadership of Stephen Ross, have just been going, you know, downhill. And the Dolphins have been losing respect in, you know, the eyes of the national media, in the eyes of the national fan base, etc., etc. And so it's not totally surprising. It's super unfortunate, and he deserves to get in. And I would like to think that he eventually will get in. But I have to admit, I think that is partially, not entirely, and it could happen regardless, but I think that's partially going to be tied to whether or not the Dolphins can turn things around as a franchise. So we'll see how that plays out. The next thing that I want to let you guys know about, though, is the Dolphins gave a 1-year contract extension to wide receiver Ricardo Lewis. As reported by Tom Pellisario and a few others, the Dolphins re-signed wide receiver Ricardo Lewis to a 1-year contract extension for 2020 per source. One-time Browns draft pick, missed 2018 with a neck and 2019 with a knee injury, still only 25. So, again, just real quick on that, as I've told you guys, I think that wide receiver is definitely like the deepest group probably on the entire roster. But at the same time, you have guys like, well, you know, Albert Wilson, Jakeem Grant, Ricardo Lewis all have, you know, pretty significant injury histories, and frankly now Preston Williams as well, Devontae Parker as well. And then a lot of those guys are just kind of like average, or some of those guys, like Ricardo Lewis is just kind of like average. I do think that, you know, Jakeem Grant and Albert Wilson, you know, are like, you know, the speed guys, and you have Preston Williams and Devontae Parker are the big body, go up and get it guys, and there's definitely a lot of potential there, but we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out going forward under, you know, the new system, etc., etc. But I do like the wide receiver group overall, and I do think that is one of the strongest positions, and so, you know, Lewis could be one of those guys that obviously he's going to be, well, given the contract extension, you would expect he'll probably make the team, although that's not a guarantee by any stretch of the imagination. But he could be a solid option, you know, as depth, right? Along with maybe like Isaiah Ford and stuff like that, right? So we'll see how that plays out going forward into training camp. All right, so now there's a couple other like big news stories that we really need to talk about. And so there's a couple reports that I am going to read to you in their entirety. They're not super long. The first one is from Joseph Zucker. It's a Bleacher Report article. Dolphins Xavier Howard accused of repeat domestic abuse in 911 call. This is huge. This is huge. And it's massively unfortunate. Now, it's only, you know, the reports are still, you know, fresh, and there's still, you know, more that has to go on. But unfortunately, it's not going in the right direction. And unfortunately, it makes the likelihood of Xavier Howard's future with the Dolphins that much murkier. And so it's looking, you know, the more that time progresses, unfortunately, again, I was saying, you know, back when the first one happened, look, hopefully, because he looked really sad in his thing, in his hearing, it seemed, from based off of my limited knowledge of him, that this is kind of, you know, antithetical to who he is as a person. But I guess I was wrong, and it's unfortunate, but it's going to make things even murkier for the Dolphins. And it's, I mean, again, stuff like this is why I said that, you know, in the Tua injury, et cetera, is why the gamble and why the reset and why I disagreed with this whole philosophy. Because it's just all a massive gamble. And they're betting on just huge unknowns. And then when you have these wrenches thrown into the cogs, it just throws everything completely out of whack. I mean, what if they end up having to cut Xavier Howard because of this? I mean, they cut Mark Walton. Now, to be fair, he had a longer history of arrests, but none of it was for domestic abuse. Well, that's not true. The last one was for domestic abuse. The last one. The previous ones to that were all like, you know, speeding or reckless driving, possession of marijuana, which I don't give two fucks about, and like a possession of, you know, a firearm or some shit like that, until the last one, right? So he does have a more extensive record, but they put out after his incident, this is unacceptable. And so now, not only does Xavier Howard have that, but now it's the second call. And so let me get to the report, though. During a 911 call on December 29th, 2019, the fiancée of Miami Dolphins cornerback Xavier Howard alleged he abused her on multiple occasions. My fiancé continues to think he can just push me, throw me into the wall without me doing nothing just because of who he is, she said in a call to 911 per TMZ Sports. But it's kind of getting to a point, it's like it's getting physical. Every time a situation happens, it's always like, oh, don't do this, or oh, well, you will be okay, don't call the cops. But it's like, okay, like I'm just pushing me into the mirror, grabbing my arm, grabbing me by my neck. Like this is probably the last day that's going to happen. I mean, it's not good. Howard was arrested December 29th and charged with domestic battery. According to ESPN's Cameron Wolfe, the arrest report detailed how an argument between Howard and his fiancée escalated. He allegedly shoved her against a mirrored glass wall in their bedroom and she fell. A police officer at the scene noted scratches and redness on the woman's right arm where Howard allegedly grabbed her, as well as an abrasion caused by the fall. The Dolphins issued a statement following Howard's arrest. We are aware of the situation and currently gathering information. We will have no further comment at this time. Howard was released on $3,000 bond shortly after his arrest. He underwent knee surgery in December and required the aid of crutches when he appeared at the Broward County Court. Now, actually, it seems though, because this is actually the first time I've fully read it, so let me just be clear. Now, this 911 call was from December 29th, which was, it sounds from this reporting that it's the same one. So it might not, to be clear, it might not be an additional call, right? But it's a little confusing, to be fair. It's a little bit confusing because, but again though, like I said, these reports, either way, like I said, these reports are still fresh, so we have to wait and see what develops. But by the title, it makes it sound like there's a new domestic incident, but in the report, it talks about what I believe to be is the first one that we already know about. Anyway, obviously it's a complicated situation. There are additional reports that are coming out about it, but either way, it's troubling. And again, like I said, it's still all fresh. There's still a lot, but it's unfortunately not in the right direction, and it's just a tricky situation. But but that actually does tie in though to the next thing that I want to talk about, because there's this other article, and that being the Dolphins, it being a report from Pro Football Talk, an article, right? Now this, to be fair and full context, it could mean absolutely nothing, but there's this article on Pro Football Talk. I got it on the Bleacher Report app. It's entitled Dolphins 2020 Promotional Video Omits Some Key Players. Accidents rarely happen when it comes to the promotional efforts of NFL teams, with perhaps the exception of the notorious 2013 Lions calendar. For the Dolphins, a 1-minute 2020 promotional video that omits multiple key players is raising questions and eyebrows. Omar Kelly of the South Florida Sun-Sentinel lists who's in and who's out of the video, wondering what message the team was sending via the absence of quarterback Ryan Fitzpatrick, who recently has said he'll play in 2020. But maybe the Dolphins are deciding that they don't want to bring him back, right? That's always a potential too, right? So even though Chris Greer said he expects him to be there, we just have to wait and see. But you know, it's like in the beginning of this article, these kinds of if it's a mistake, these kinds of mistakes rarely happen, and there are a number of guys on here, you know, but a number of key guys on here. So it could be mistakes, but they are rare. And generally, things like this, like, look, I mean, these organizations constantly, and this is what, and this holds true to almost anything in life, but these organizations constantly will say a bunch of shit and then do like the opposite or other things. That's why you got to look at their actions. It's important to take into account the things that they say as part of the context, but the most important thing is their actions, right? And so these things do matter, right? So it could end up being nothing, but we could end up saying them, you know, cutting Ryan Fitzpatrick. The next person on the list is cornerback Xavier Howard, who was arrested for domestic battery in late December. Maybe he ends up getting cut because of this whole thing. Now again, with Mark Walton, they set a standard that it's unacceptable. But now they have this star cornerback who they've been touting as like the one guy that they have to build around. And they paid him this big contract, even though they front loaded all his guaranteed money. So that way the contract is tradable, super tradable, right? Maybe he ends up getting cut. Safety Rashad Jones, I don't think he's going to end up being on the team. Defensive back Eric Rowe, they gave him a contract extension, but that's not a guarantee. What if he ends up getting cut somewhere? Offensive lineman Jesse Davis, center Daniel Kilgore, linebacker Jerome Baker, and linebacker Raekwon McMillan. Now, to be fair, I would say that guys like Baker and McMillan, Kilgore, Rowe, those guys will probably be on the team next season. So, you know, maybe some of this means absolutely nothing, but maybe some of it is a little bit of a foreshadowing. Like maybe Rashad Jones is going to get cut. Maybe they do end up, you know, with Rosen on the roster, with, you know, Jake Rudock, and then, but if they end up like moving up to go get a guy, maybe they're like, you know what, we really want to put our number one pick, quarterback, our top rated quarterback, blah, 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 out there and throw him into the fire, even if it's Tua Tagovailoa, et cetera, despite his injury history. You know, maybe they're, I don't know. Frankly, if I'm being honest, I wouldn't put it past the Dolphins organization as it stands right now, with the people in leadership that we have, to do something that stupid. So, but we'll have to wait and see. Making prominent appearances in the video are receiver Devontae Parker, receiver Allen Hurns, receiver Preston Williams, cornerback Nick Needham, tight end Mike Gesicki, tight end Devon Godchaux. That's got to be a mistake. Defensive tackle Devon Godchaux, safety Bobby McCain, and defensive lineman Christian Wilkins. Now, you know, with those guys, I mean, you know, Parker's being touted as like, you know, again, like the only other foundational piece, but, you know, this breakout star now, and the Flores organization is getting a ton of credit, you know, blah, 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 etc. for that, even though, frankly, they don't really deserve the majority of the credit. That goes to Adam Gase's regime and coaching staff for getting him to finally do the right things, to be healthy, to be on the field, to live up to his potential. But you know, they are taking, you know, getting a bunch of credit for that. So it's not surprising he's in the video, but he's definitely a, you know, a Flores guy at this point. Alan Hearns, they did give him the contract extension, so that makes sense. Preston Williams is one of those guys who's a gem of their evaluation. And to be fair, he is, but now he does have this significant injury that we have to wait and see what happens. But we definitely expect him to be around. He's a Flores guy, and one of the few, you know, off the street or undrafted guys or whatever that they brought in that's actually a success. Nick Needham is another one, although he's kind of a mixed bag as well. Mike Gesicki, again, was a Gase pick, and his prowess as a blocker is drastically improved because of Gase's regime. Again, though, another one of those guys that's kind of like breaking out, or certainly had a breakout season in his career this past season, right? And so Brian Flores' regime's getting a ton of credit there as well. Devon Godshaw, again, a guy that was Adam Gase pick, and certainly way outperformed Christian Wilkins overall from what I can tell from the stats and the film, etc., etc. And, you know, but again, another guy that this current regime is getting credit for, which again, let's note, is like almost completely different as far as the coaching staff goes. So the guys who supposedly get credit for Devontae Parker and like Mike Gesicki's breakout season, some of those guys aren't even here anymore. Like Chad O'Shea, who got hired by, I think, the Browns as like quarterbacks coach and like passing game coordinator or some shit like that. Bobby McCain, again, a Gase guy, and did his best work and got his contract extension at free safety, or as a slot corner, but is expected to remain at free safety, where he didn't play great and then got injured. So this coaching staff, I mean, anyway. And then Christian Wilkins is their underwhelming first round pick. So look, I mean, again, this could all mean nothing, but I do think that it is important context at the very least, because I do think it is telling who they decided to put in, who they decided to leave out, and some of the context at least surrounding the individual players, as to give us, you know, maybe a little bit of insight as to why certain players were put in and why certain players were left out. Now, of course, you know, we may never know for sure until or, you know, we may never know for sure, or we may not know until, like, you know, other additional pieces of information come out to give us a more definitive answer, or until, like, for example, if they decide to cut Ryan Fitzpatrick or cut Xavier Howard because of his issues or whatever, right? I mean, it's just, the Dolphins are such a mess right now. Players do pay attention to who gets put on billboards, season ticket renewal packages, and which 5 jerseys get mass-produced by Nike for sale in the team store, Kelly accurately observes. They know stuff like these promotional videos cross the desk of the team's decision makers, and nothing used, or more importantly omitted, is accidental. And that's huge, and that's why, like I said, this is important. So a message has been sent both as to the guys in the video and as to the guys not in the video. What the message means will be seen in the coming months. And that's absolutely right. And that's what I was trying to really get at, is that we'll see. But, you know, things going on with, you know, Xavier Howard are not looking, you know, the greatest. We do have to wait and see how that plays out. And again, there's still a lot up in the air with that. But, and that one particular report was a little confusing. But, you know, look, I just, again, and I've been saying this for a long time, my prediction is that, you know, they're going to end up being big spenders in free agency. They're going to trade up, you know, trade away significant draft capital to go get somebody, either Burrow or Tua. They're going to make misstep after misstep after misstep. They're going to end up having a down year in 2020, certainly not to the level of expectation that's being placed on it. They're not going to fucking, like, I've seen so many reports about how the Dolphins are going to be contenders next year and blah, 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 all this other bullshit. Like, I would love that. I would love that, and I hope that they prove me wrong. But the evidence just doesn't really back that up to this point. And so, you know, my guess and my prediction is that they're going to end up having a down year in 2020, especially to the level of expectation that's being put on it. They're going to have a down year in 2021, if there's even a season at all, depending on the outcome of the potential player strike that's coming. I mean, we still, again, have another year to wait and see how that develops, but so far that's not trending in the right direction, right? And so, I mean, you know, and then I think that Brian Flores is going to end up getting scapegoated after about approximately 3 to 3.5 years, because that's Stephen Ross's MO, because he's proven on numerous levels to be, you know, getting more and more desperate and craven, etc., etc. He doesn't, to me, his track record has been pretty bad when it comes to making football decisions. Yes, he has done a lot in the community, and yes, he has put a lot of his own money into it, including building the amazing stadium that we have, but that's not enough, right? And certainly just throwing resources is not the only way to do it. You can't just throw money and draft capital at it and expect that you're going to fix it. No, you have to be smart, strategic. You have to build things right. You have to put the right people in charge. You have to have the right philosophies and game plans, build the right culture, etc., etc., etc. And it's just, unfortunately, ironically enough, the support is really high. For last time I saw, it was still over 70% by the fan base, but the trend just keeps going down, right? I mean, most people don't see it. I know I'm the odd guy out. You know, it's been a hard struggle to get to the 270 plus subscribers that I have now, and it's, you know, been a hard trek trying to get to that 1,000 so that way I can monetize my channel and grow it and make it bigger and do bigger and better things. But, you know, I point out the uncomfortable things that people don't like to look at, you know, and unfortunately the trend is been going down, especially under Stephen Ross. He took over the team when we still had a rich winning history, even in the few years prior to him taking over. And then he took it and he drove us into perpetual mediocrity, and now he's driven us into just shit. And I mean, again, to be fair, we have to wait and see how the 2020 and 2021 seasons go. But my guess is we're not going to we're going to struggle to even get back to mediocre. And then we're certainly, from my perspective and my prediction, we're not going to be contending for playoffs. We're not going to be, you know, contending for championships in the AFC or the division or for the Super Bowl, because we're too far from it. We're still, and then not only that, but at a very minimum, we're still at least 4 to 5 years away from proving that this plan can produce sustainable success. And I just don't think that Stephen Ross has the patience, and especially as he gets a year older, and I think it's just going to continue to backfire. And then in a few years, Flores gets scapegoated and we're back at fucking step one, square one, yet again, even though we're kind of there already in year 2 of the Flores regime, because the coaching staff is almost entirely new and the roster is going to look vastly different than it did last season. So with some of the same primary issues, a bunch of young, inexperienced guys, you know, all new systems to learn, blah blah blah. Then you're gonna have, you know, you got a bunch of guys on the roster that are like average at best. Some of your key players have like injury histories or off the field issues. Like, it's just a giant fucking mess. And so I hope that they can turn it around, and I hope it can produce wonderful things, but I don't see that based off of the data and information. And so my prediction, you know, is that it's going to turn out terribly. And it's super unfortunate, but, you know, we'll wait and see. Again, free agency is, you know, fast on approach now that the Super Bowl is over. So we're going to start seeing, you know, the moves that they make. I'm sure, you know, here soon, once free agency officially opens, you know, we're gonna see a flurry of transactions. You know, they've already said publicly that they expect to be big spenders in free agency. So we'll see if that actually holds true and how they do spend the amount of the, you know, large amount of cap space that they have. You know, and then we'll see how they handle the draft. You know, real quick, it was funny. I watched a Dudley Do Wrong episode recently. I haven't been watching as much of the other content creators as I would like because I've been, you know, busy and stuff. But I did watch one recently, and he said that he just does not believe that the Dolphins are going to move up at all. He finds it massively inconceivable. And okay. I mean, I think there's, to be fair, we don't know yet. It hasn't happened yet. And sure, it's possible that they don't. And in fact, it's possible that they could even trade back, right? Of course, all of those things are possible. But there's a ton of data that leads you to believe, right? The whole tank for Tua, the enamored posture that the Dolphins have taken over a number of quarterbacks, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Tua, right? The plethora of picks and cap space that they have, the comments about being aggressive in free agency, right? All of that leads you to believe that what they are priming for is to move, especially then with, you know, the possibility in talks and reports of other teams potentially wanting to jump them for a guy. Because what if Joe Burrow goes at number 1 and then somebody jumps them to trade with the Detroit Lions to number 3 and get Tua, and then they're like, okay, well, sure, we can settle with Justin Herbert at 5, but I don't think that's what Stephen Ross wants. I think he wants to pick his guy and wants to ensure that. And so I think that he's willing to just, again, throw whatever amount of resources is required, even if he's overpaying for it, to move up to number 3 to get Tua, or possibly even number 1 to go get Burrow. So, you know, like I said, there is a ton of, we have to wait and see. In season 1, you know, I was overall correct about the outcome of the season, even though somehow after such a massive disaster, people still spin it in this like glorious light. Oh, anyway, I don't want to get into that. But again, this is year 2, so I don't believe that they personally started out very well, but they still have the entire year to prove it. We're starting with free agency, which comes up real soon, and so we'll see what they do. Again, this is how I'll end it. I'll end on this note. I hope that they prove me wrong. I just don't see it, and to be fair, it's not written in stone. So let's see what they do. Again, their comments and their words are important context, but their actions are more important. So let's see what they do, starting with free agency coming up soon. All right, guys, I'm gonna get up out of here. I hope you guys enjoy my videos and my perspective. If you do, make sure that you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure that you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Make sure that you share my channel and videos with your friends and family. Leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comment section. And of course, as always, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Dillon Tartaro. And with that, I am out. I'll see y'all soon. Fins up.